Trade rumors continue to escalate surrounding the Toronto Maple Leafs, and this one is very interesting as a recent article has dropped linking Taylor Hall to the Leafs. I'm going to break down that as well as discuss Max Domi. He is poised for a breakout year following his big contract extension in this offseason. So I'm going to break all that down in this episode. But before we do have a quick message from our sponsor, NordVPN.
In years past, the Leafs defense has not been up to snuff, but with NordVPN, your internet's defense is guaranteed. Visit nordvpn.com/Leafs to access internet privacy with a single click, even when you're not at home. Using public Wi-Fi networks at shopping malls or airports can be risky, but with NordVPN, your personal data is encrypted, providing a super simple, super easy protection. And I know personally, sometimes I want to watch TV shows or movies that are not available in my country, but with NordVPN, you can spoof your location and enjoy content from different countries easily. With NordVPN's special Threat Protection Pro and Dark Web Monitor, you get an extra layer of protection just for good measure from unwanted malware on your device and will be notified if your sensitive personal information ends up on the dark web. Get an exclusive NordVPN deal plus 4 extra months by using the code at nordvpn.com/Leafs. It's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guaranteed. Special thank you to NordVPN for sponsoring today's video.
Thank you again to NordVPN for sponsoring this one. Check them out in the link in the pinned comment or the description. Now, Darius, we do have a lot to go over today, and this one is a bit of an interesting trade proposal. And Taylor Hall, who has not really been linked to the Leafs in the past, an article dropped linking the Leafs to him, and I just want to get your thoughts on that as well as we'll break down the Max Domi stuff. But let's start with the trade. Trade pitch has Maple Leafs acquiring former MVP. No longer really an MVP caliber player, as we'll dive into in a minute here, but former MVP from the Blackhawks. Now, the article basically dives into the fact that we know that, and we've mentioned this so many times in the channel, Toronto's in their window to win the Stanley Cup, specifically over the next couple of years. And in the offseason, the Leafs haven't addressed their forward group, and they struggled to score goals last season in the playoffs, which is why one trade pitch has the Leafs acquiring Taylor Hall. So the Maple Leafs get Hall at $3 million retained, and the Blackhawks get a second-round pick. It is Florida's second-round pick. So Darius, I want to hear your thoughts on this, and we'll dive into the reasoning behind it, like what the article gives. So I just want to get your thoughts on it first. Taylor Hall, but a little bit washed for sure, but definitely is an interesting guy.
I think this is very interesting. Normally, when I would see a trade proposal like this, I kind of scoff at it and go about my day. But I think the Blackhawks and Taylor Hall are very interesting. Like, the Blackhawks are a very interesting trade partner for what they are right now in their rebuild. And Taylor Hall, I mean, he's a UFA at the end of next season. So I think the Blackhawks might be willing to let him go, right? Because they can just re-sign him if they want to bring him back for that veteran leadership. And, they wanted him to play with Connor Bedard. I could definitely see them hanging on to him. But I think it's a very interesting trade partner because they are looking for younger pieces, maybe a Nick Robertson. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not saying that there's any validity to that, but they may be in the market for something like that because they are trying to get younger. And they have a decent mix of players, right? They have Nick Foligno as well. They're trying to have some better veteran leadership, but I think they're a very interesting trade partner for the Leafs. And I think Taylor Hall, if he were to come to the Leafs, I mean, he's instantly, the best left wing that they have for sure. He is getting a little bit older. He's already 32, which is crazy to think. But he would definitely be probably the best left wing that they have right now and slot right in there, either first or second line, depending how the lineup shakes out. So I think they're a very interesting trade partner, and Taylor Hall is a very interesting player for the Leafs. Like, that would really help the Leafs with that left wing position. Not that they have any holes in it. We just don't know for certain what's going to happen this season because a lot of guys have to take steps forward for it to work out.
Yeah, and some things that we'll probably break down in future video are the Nick Robertson situation is getting a little bit weirder, but I said washed earlier. I should rephrase washed given the MVP headline of this article. I will rephrase that. But yeah, so you're giving up a second round pick, and you can see here that they mentioned that basically the deal is a 1-for-1. Toronto gets Taylor Hall at $3 million retained, makes him a $3 million player, which is pretty reasonable given what he should be able to produce, especially given the fact that obviously he's been playing with the Blackhawks. They don't have a great supporting cast. The Leafs would definitely be a very, very good supporting cast for him. And Hall is also entering the final year of his deal. So if this trade doesn't happen or manufacture in this offseason, Darius, it could happen at the trade deadline, as the article says here. He's very likely to be a trade deadline piece because the Blackhawks seemingly aren't going to compete. And you can see his stats here. He had 4 points in 10 games, was limited last year a lot with injuries. But the big thing here, he still played 16 minutes a game, did not have a very good season. So you'd really be buying low on Taylor Hall. We know what his ceiling is. We know what he's done in the past, of course. But obviously the injuries hurt him a little bit. 32 years of age, about to be 33. So there's some question marks. But for a second round pick, if they're going all in to win, then it makes some sense for both sides. Though I like what you said earlier. I feel like there's also maybe not a better chance, but a decent chance that a bigger trade gets done here surrounding Nick Robertson, especially given the fact he, which we'll mention in a future video, is still yet to sign a contract with the Toronto Maple Leafs. So we don't know what's happening in that front regarding a trade. But any final thoughts on this? I like it. Makes sense for both sides. Would definitely bolster the Leafs' wing position, especially in the absence of Tyler Bertuzzi.
I think with the Chicago Blackhawks, they would want to keep Taylor Hall until the trade deadline. I do think that they'll probably end up moving off of him because they can just resign him or whatever they want to do with him, or maybe sign somebody else because they need some veteran leadership still with Connor Bedard there. But I could see this happening at the trade deadline. I think, it could be a second round pick right now. If you were to do it right now, you might be paying less right now just because we don't know what Taylor Hall is based on, the injuries last year and the last couple of years, that is. But he's still good for almost a point a game, right? Like, given his track record up until the injury last year. So still a very useful player. If you can get him for a second round pick, definitely do that. I just don't see Chicago giving him up right now for that, because if he does have a pretty good season with Bedard, then obviously they can get more for him at the trade deadline. But he's, acquiring a guy like that from the Blackhawks, I think is very doable. They can retain salary because of the situation they're in, quite a bit of it too. So it could definitely work for the Leafs down the road near the trade deadline. You just might be paying more, but I kind of like it. It's an interesting fit depending on how the season goes for the Leafs, because again, the left wing position on the Leafs, they do have a few players, but there are a couple question marks with how well those players are going to play this year. And you kind of know what you're getting in Taylor Hall. So pretty interesting trade proposal. I don't hate it. We'll just have to see what happens because I don't know if it gets done right now.
Yeah, speaking of the Maple Leafs offense, not necessarily a winger, but a center in this case, Max Domi. And we've seen some things. Also, yeah, let us know what your thoughts are on the trade. I think it'll be a something that we're definitely going to revisit either as the season gets closer, depending on what route the Blackhawks take, or at the deadline. But Max Domi, an article dropped basically saying he's set for a big year following his extension. I just want to talk about him for a minute. We've seen some stuff. I think it was on Instagram I saw, maybe it was TikTok. Him working out, him looking really good, him looking ready to really play and have a great season next year. And this was an interesting thing here. Domi tends to respond following his signing. So over his career, Domi has signed 5 contracts, so 5 contracts including this one, outside of his entry-level deal. And for the most part, he's responded with some of the best hockey from an offensive standpoint. They basically go into that. Darius, just a quick note here. I'm excited for Max Domi to play next season for the Toronto Maple Leafs. He seems like he's going to be a crucial piece of this team. Again, we talk about the lack of depth they have at the forward position. Obviously, Domi's a center, but I think at this point, he's going to play a much bigger role. And I think he has the opportunity, especially under Craig Berube, to do better than he did last year, even though he was one of the better players, at least in the playoffs last year, especially when he had that really good handful of games in the playoffs.
Yeah, especially game 2, right, in the playoffs. Like, he was very good for the Leafs last playoffs and all year, really. Like, we just saw the stats. I mean, just over half a point a game, right? In the roles he was used, he was a very effective player last year, and I thought he filled in. The one thing he did really well that I really liked last year is he fit into every single role that they put him into perfectly. He took on every position that they needed him to play perfectly. I thought he did it really well. Obviously, he's not a natural centerman at the NHL level, but he filled in where need be, and he played really well. So like you mentioned, with all the videos coming out, obviously I don't think he's posted in the past. It might just be because he's on the Leafs now that he's posting these videos in the offseason. But it looks like he's working really hard, and it looks like he wants to win because he's here now, right? He's in Toronto. He's from Toronto. I'm sure he wants to win. So he's putting in that much more effort, and I think that's something that the fans can really get behind too, and why they love Max Domi so much. So it's really good to see this offseason too, that he's putting in the work and obviously wants to come back stronger and put together an even better season. I thought he had a great season last year, right? No complaints from me, honestly. So him coming into this year, I think he's going to be that much better and that much bigger of a piece for the Leafs, and it's going to be really exciting to watch this season. So Max Domi, I mean, look out, it's going to be exciting. Probably getting more fights and stuff too, right? He was really entertaining last year, I thought, besides the points. So it's going to be that much better. It's exciting.
Yeah, super exciting, and we love him as a player, and we'll see what they do to help bolster the rest of the, I guess, offense for the Toronto Maple Leafs, because the defense looks really good. The offense looks pretty good, obviously, but I don't know. There's still a lot of question marks, I feel like, as we're inching closer and closer to this season now. But let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on this. Do you want to see Taylor Hall become a Toronto Maple Leaf, and are you excited for Max Domi? Let us know, and we'll see you guys very, very soon.